Hi, and welcome back. So here we're just going to continue our discussion on the while loop, and in particular, we're going to look at what happens with break and continue when we are inside a try statement inside a loop. And so the question is, what happens? Now, if you remember, with the try, we have try, then we have an except clause that will run when there's an exception, and we can trap specific exceptions. But there's also this finally clause that exists in the try, and this finally clause always runs even when there's an exception. So whether there is an exception or not, finally always runs. So let's just check that out very quickly, just as a refresher. Let's say we take a equals 10, b equals 1, and we're going to try just dividing a by b. So we're going to say try a by b, and then we're going to catch a 0 division error. Okay, so we'll trap that error and we'll just print division by 0. And we're also going to put in a finally. And finally, I'm just going to say print this always executes. Okay, so when we run this code, well, there was no exception because b was equal to 1, but we still ran the this always executes. So we see that output right here. Now, if we change b to 0, then we get the division by 0 trap that occurred here, right? So we caught that error and we printed out division by 0. And then the finally also ran as well. So as you can see, finally always runs. But now we might get into the following situation. And let's do a little example. So let's start again with a equal to 0, and let's do another variable b equal 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increment a and decrement b at the same time and do an a divided by b. So if I do this correctly, at some point I'm going to hit a division by 0. When a reaches 2, b is going to reach 0, and we're going to get a division by 0 error. So I'm going to do that inside a while loop. So won't run the while loop for too much, just enough to get to the error and one more. So let's do a less than 3. In fact, I'll do a less than 4, just to be sure. And then we'll print, first thing I'm going to do is just print some dashes out just to indicate the beginning of the loop so we can keep things kind of neatly separated as we're printing. And we'll set a equal to a plus 1, right? So we're incrementing a by 1, and we're going to decrement b by 1 as well. So basically, at some point, b is going to become 0. And then we're going to do our try. So let's go ahead and do a try. And we're going to say result equals, actually we don't need even a result, we're going to just try a divided by b. Not going to store that anywhere. And we'll do except our 0 division error. And when we have a division error, we're going to print out the two numbers that are causing the problem. And we'll say that this is in the division by 0. Okay, and then we'll just format a comma b. So we'll see what's causing the problem there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to say continue. So if we get a division, if we run the exception, let's do a continue. Let's just go ahead and do that, and let's see what happens. So in this case, I'm putting the continue inside the except clause, but you could put it inside the try as well. It doesn't matter. The finally will still run. And let's go ahead and print the finally. So we'll do print, let's print the values out again. And let's just say this always executes. Okay, so this is in there, and we need to format it with a and b. Okay. And then I'm going to put something in the main loop. I'm going to put in, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Basically, I'm going to print out a comma b. And we'll say that this is in the main loop. So now we should be able to identify every print statement where it's coming from and see what's going on as this thing runs. Okay. And that's it. So basically, we've got this while loop. We're incrementing a, decrementing b. We try dividing a by b. If we have a 0 division error, we trap it. We print out this thing, and then we do continue, which will basically go back, remember, now to the beginning of the loop and re-execute the test. But it will not reach this point. When we have continue, it will not reach this point. If we don't have an exception, then it won't continue and we will reach this point here. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we run this. And of course, that's not what I expected. I've got an unexpected that. Okay, so I typed in something incorrectly. Right? I knew I was going to get an exception, but I wasn't trapping that one. So let's try it again. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I really can't type, can I? All right, let's make sure. Yeah, everything else looks fine. Okay, now we got it. All right, so let's see what happened. And all right, I still can't type. I'm going to leave this in the video so you can see kind of the errors and maybe how to start debugging and understanding sometimes some of the stuff that comes back. So here's the error. I have my try, my accept zero division error, and it tells me that I errored out on this line of code with a zero division error. Well, that's what I'm trying to trap. Why didn't it trap it? Well, the only reason would be if I'm not trapping the correct error. And let's see what I'm trying to trap. I'm trying to trap zero division error, but I misspelled error. It's 2 R's there and only 1 R there. So I wasn't trapping the Python zero division error. That's why I actually got a zero division error in here. Okay. All right, so let's try this again. Much better. It was supposed to execute without actually creating an exception at runtime. So we'll see 1, 1. So it executed 1, 1. It always executes. That was the finally. Okay. And then it printed that from the main loop. Then we started the next loop. We have 2, 0. Look what happened. We printed out division by 0 right here. So we reached that line of code. That line here reached or was reached by this, was generated by this line of code. At this point, we did a continue. But look at what happens. The 2, 0 still gets printed with the always executes. So the finally code block actually executed, even though we have the continue here. And that will always happen. So if you're inside a try statement and you have a continue, and if you have a finally, the finally will execute. So that's great. That means that, if you need to make sure that you close a file or close a database connection for some reason, maybe roll back a transaction or do something when the, after you're done trying to deal with whatever it is in that particular loop iteration, then you're assured that the finally will run whether you had an exception or not. We know that. But even if you have a continue in there, let's say in your exception trap, it will still run the finally. It's not going to bail out of the loop until it's executed the finally, and then it will bail out. So that's really good to know. Now this works with break as well, not just continue. So if we take this, and now I know at least it executes correctly, and all I need to do, let's see if I can spell this, break, okay? Then, of course, what's going to happen is that we're not going to get these iterations because we're going to break as soon as we hit the first error. So if we execute this, as you can see, again, the finally executes, right? Because this division by 0 error occurred, we still executed the finally, and then we did the break on the statement. Now, of course, you can also combine this with the else clause if you want, right? So now we could say else, and of course, when will the else execute? If the break was never encountered, which means what? We never had a division error, a zero division error. So we can just say here, print code executed without a zero division error, right? So we know that that's the case if we reach the else clause. So when we do that, we don't get this print statement. We don't get the string printed out. Why? Well, we had a division by 0 error. So let's tweak this so that we don't get a division by 0 error. All I need to do, if a is going to run up to 4, I'm going to make b, let's say, equal to 10. So as b gets decremented, I know that 10 minus 4 isn't going to become 0. So if we run that, then you'll notice we get all these loops, and then we get code executed without a zero division error. So it did, in fact, execute that else statement. All right, I think that kind of sums it up for the refresher on the while loop. So remember, the while loop, you start and you always evaluate the conditional expression first, which doesn't guarantee that your loop will run at least once. If you need to do that, you can use the while true kind of approach. The while loop also has an else clause that can be attached to it, which executes if and only if the while loop terminated normally, i.e. without a break statement. And then the continue and break statements can be used inside a try statement inside a loop, and the finally will always still execute before either breaking or continuing from that point forward. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.